In this video for Poker News, we get to see if Daniel Negreanu can make a big call on the river when Sean Winter, one of the bluffiest players in the world, bluffs the river. Huge thanks to PokerGO for letting us use this footage. This is from deep in one of the PokerGO Cup events. They have lots and lots of big tournaments at the PokerGO studio. I took second place recently in a $10,000 tournament there at the US Poker Open, and if you play high stakes poker, that is the place to play. It is amazing.
100 over 6. I mean, that's kind of crazy.
It's bold, I realize that.
That's you're definitely in the minority there.
Oh yeah, I believe that. Ace, Queen, Jack, two pair for Negreanu.
Yeah, believe it or not, a double gutter for
Two-way
Winter.
straight draw for Winter.
Not terrible. Little sneaky 9-ball.
$175.
Winter the check raise. That little limp pre-flop might help Negreanu extract some added value here.
Not going anywhere with bottom two. Yeah, we're concerned. You know, can Winter have King 10? Absolutely.
Daniel Negreanu gets a little bit tricky and limps pre-flop. And normally, when you are the big stack at a final table, three-handed, playing 40-ish big blinds deep, you want to do a whole lot of raising. I fully realize that he is barely the chip leader. He has 1.9 million, whereas Sean Winter and Chagall both have 1.6 or 1.7 million or so. But I think you probably just want to be generally aggressive. However, I fully understand that whenever you have Sean Winter at your table, you do want to take a line that will ensure you see a cheap flop with a hand like Queen Jack suited. And if you raise, you may get 3-bet or ripped all in against, and it's going to make the scenario way more difficult. So, interesting spot where Negreanu does decide to have a limping strategy. All right, on the flop, Ace, Queen, Jack. Negreanu has two pair. Sean Winter checks. Negreanu bets small, minimum. And then Sean Winter decides to put in the check raise with the 10 high. I told you he likes to bluff. This is a spot where I think you probably do want to check raise with some junky draws that are not quite good enough to call. So what are junky draws on this board? Well, it's going to be hands containing a 10, very clearly. Because whenever you have a king, you're way more likely to have the best hand. And you have outs against an opponent who has a random queen or a jack, right? Whereas if your opponent has a hand like Jack 7 in this spot, and you have the 10-8, well, if you get a 10 or an 8, you lose. Whereas if you had, let's say, King 8, and you catch a king, you win, right? So I definitely think Sean does want to check raise some amount of 10x. And I think it's a pretty difficult spot for Negreanu's range in general because he's probably not limping a whole lot of ace-x type hands. I mean, maybe he does. I don't know what his limping range is because I would not have much of a limping range here at all. Maybe you can tell us in the comments section. Hello, Daniel. I know you watch these videos. And this is a spot where I can't imagine Negreanu wants to re-raise anything. I know a lot of people may look at this spot and say, well, Negreanu has two pair. He wants to re-raise and get all the money in. The thing is, though, is that when he does end up getting all the money in, it's going to be against straights like King 10, which I certainly think Winter could have, although he's probably going to raise a lot of those pre-flop. Ace, Queen, or Ace, Jack would almost certainly raise pre-flop. So what that means is he's usually just not going to get it in, right? Plus, if he knows what I know about Sean Winter, that he likes to get in there and battle, Negreanu really wants to keep Sean Winter in the pot because hands containing a 10 or hands containing perhaps a king or hands with just random backdoor flush draws are drawing really thin. So Daniel just has to call and give Sean Winter every possible opportunity to bluff.
Highly unlikely that he has Ace, Jack, Ace, Queen for a set.
On the turn, Winter checks. Negreanu checks back.
The turn's an interesting spot for Negreanu with two pair because he almost certainly has the best hand at this point. And the question then becomes, does Sean Winter have many ace-x in his range? And I think he probably has some that would go for a check raise on the flop because whatever ace-x he has that's not two pairs is kind of vulnerable to being outdrawn by random gut shots and pairs with, additional outs. So I think if I was in Negreanu's shoes, I would have gone for a bet in this scenario, but I certainly don't mind checking it behind because when it does go check, check, you have an easy call on the river. It is vitally important when you are playing three-handed at a final table that you do not open yourself up to getting all of your money in, drawing thin or dead. And this is a spot where I do think Negreanu will be thin or dead sometimes. That said, again, it's kind of hard for Sean Winter to have the best hand in this scenario because he's almost always going to raise aces and queens and jacks and king 10 pre-flop, and he could have maybe ace 7, but that's it, right? So I think this is a scenario where Negreanu probably should have just gone for a small value bet, but checking it back is fine if you think that Sean Winter will go for a lot of bluffs on the river, and spoiler alert, he probably will.
3 of hearts on the river, 490K in this pot.
Going to be very difficult for Winter to win this pot. He'd have to come with some sort of, I think, absurd overbet. He doesn't even have a heart in his hand to try and represent some sort of backdoor flush.
The river is the 3 of hearts. The backdoor flush draw comes in. Sean Winter has zip and pip, 10 high. He's got to bluff. He's going to bluff, right? I want you to take a second, pause the video, and write in the comment section below if you would bluff in this scenario. Obviously, we don't know Negreanu has 2 pair. And if you bluff, how much are you going to bluff? Are you going to go tiny, like 125K? Are you going to go medium, like 250K? Are you going to go big, like 500K? Or are you going to go all in for the whole enchilada? Pause the video and write what you would do in the comment section below. This is an interesting spot because Sean Winter does not have a heart. I mean, he has a lot of heart, but he does not have a heart in his hand. If he had a heart in his hand, I actually don't mind going for the whole enchilada. I know that may sound insane, but in this spot, Negreanu's going to have a whole lot of queens and jacks and aces, right? And in order to get those hands to fold, you're probably going to need to make a giant bet. And having either the king of hearts or the 10 of hearts in your hand in this scenario is very, very, very valuable. But Sean Winter doesn't have it. So he's going to bluff. The question is what is he trying to get Negreanu off of, right? And I think he's going to pretty clearly be trying to get Negreanu off of a queen or a jack. And I do think a big bet will get that done a decent chunk of the time. So if Winter does decide to bluff, I think he needs to go for the pot size bet. That said, I will default to Sean Winter because Sean Winter may be the best bluffer in the world. He gets in there, he battles hard, his bluffs get through a decent amount of the time, so I'm going to default to whatever Sean Winter does. Let's take a look.
You simply just wave the white flag. Winter says, no, I don't think so. I'm going to grab a pile of purple. Look at this.
The 5? 500,000.
Yeah.
And Negreanu flicks in the call. Daniel Negreanu.
Sean Winter does go for the pot size bet to try to get the queen or the jack to fold. Unfortunately for him, Negreanu has a queen and a jack, and Sean Winter loses a big pot. Some people may look at this and say, why would he run the bluff with a 10 high? He certainly could find a better spot. The thing is, though, is if you always wait for a better spot, your opponents won't pay you off, and then you're just relying on getting lucky and setting up your opponent. But getting in there and battling like Sean Winter does is going to result in a lot of small and medium pots being pushed his direction. Also, to be fair, shout out to Daniel Negreanu. He played this hand in a way that induced as many bluffs as possible, while also making it impossible for him to lose in the spots where he happened to be set up. So good job to him as well. That's going to be it for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, click the like and subscribe button below so that I know that you like this type of hand breakdown content from PokerGO. Huge thanks to PokerGO for letting me use this footage, by the way. Make sure you check out PokerGo.com. Good luck in your games. Have a great week. If you bluff with 10 high, try to make sure your opponent doesn't have 2 pair.